So I've been using Vim for a while now, and I have collected a couple of remaps that I find very useful for myself, so I wanted to share. So, first of all, I always found it annoying to use the default registers. So, let's go to this block. There are a couple of special ones, like the plus or asterisk register, 0, dash, dot, underscore, and colon. All of them are in some fashion difficult to press. You know why? Because I'm gonna turn on like keys so you can see them. Hold on. All right, great. So now you can, right? Yeah, perfect. So, what are the hand movements that happen? So first, usually you press double quote, and then immediately you have to move your pinky finger up in this like difficult to reach fashion to have a plus, and then you also have to move that same finger to the P key to paste it or to yank it, but it's not necessarily better since your hand stretches so wide. Same thing for 0, same thing for dash, same thing. Well, not as much of a same thing with dot, but still it's not really comfortable for me. Same thing for underscore, and colon is just an extra shift to press, which is why I actually remap semicolon to be colon and colon to be the semicolon, which is used for backwards F jumping. And as you can see, my double quotes are actually comma. So I made a single quote be my access to registers. So let's yank this to the A register. I just need to press one key to access a register. So single quote, then A, rather than shift single quote to get a double quote, and then A. So we yanked it, and I can just as easily paste it. Turns out I just copied a dot, which is funny, but you get the idea. So I really recommend looking into remapping some of the most used buttons that you're going to be pressing in Vim. And let's actually move to where I define those changes. Yeah, here they are in all remaps. And by the way, my dot files are publicly available. I leave a link to that in the description, as well as my GitHub profile. So here I have the remap of semicolon to colon, single quote to double quote, then colon to comma, and so on and so on. Those I found really useful. And to extend that idea, I also didn't want to use the default special registers. For me, first typing a single quote on the right side and then writing a different letter to mean a special register with my other hand feels far better. So let's look what I have. Oh, well, my previous video's description is in my clipboard. So to paste it, I would just single quote, then a different hand Q. Well, I did it too slowly, which you have to consider, and then P. So every key was done by a different hand, and that's far more comfortable for me than double quote, then once again shift equals to get a plus sign, and then P. Huge difference. So for them, I picked Q, W, E, R for the special ones, I for the black hole register, because most often I'm going to be using it on D, the D operator, for deleting stuff rather than cutting or whatever. Because for cutting, I actually yeah, whenever I cut or S, that's automatically not yanked for me. I tried for a really long time to just get used to changing things, copying that to my clipboard, but I could not make myself understand and comprehend how to use it effectively. So I ended up just making them not occupy my unnamed register by default. Once again, something that you should look into, but not as quickly as other things, perhaps. I think it's very useful to get used to the defaults if you can, but once you know the defaults and are pretty comfortable with them, and still think that they're not enough, at that point you should probably consider making a remap. Don't just jump the gun and make every single remap that comes to mind. That can actually be worse for you in the long term, because if you ever come across Vim not on your machine, well, you're kind of helpless now because you remapped every single thing. I have a lot of remaps, and I would still not be as fast on default Vim, but I would know my way around. I know this because I use the Z Shell Vim mode, which I at least didn't remap, and I can still F jump correctly and so forth. So outside of normal mode register accessing, I did the same thing for insert mode and command mode, which is the exclamation mark. So some things that once again paste the special registers. This thing, once again, because I use a semicolon for my command line, so it makes sense to have the register mean the same thing. And then Control B, which just pastes what's in my current register, which I guess was V. I find it nicer than Control R and then quote or something, and I can spam it like far more easily, so I like that. So these are probably the most important ones, but maybe I'm just forgetting the other important ones that are actually even more useful. Some more specific things that I have as my leader remaps, I also want to show them to you. So let's go down the list. First of all, I have multiply current character. When I press leader Q, it, well, multiplies the current character. But if I have a selection, then it multiplies that selection. And let me tell you, this does sound useful until you actually implement it and have it, and then you realize that it's not that often used. But then you remove it and realize that, sometimes I actually do really want that. Oh, and by the way, this should take account. So 3, interesting. I think it doesn't. Oh, it works in a different way than I thought. Could be a bug on my part. So let's do, oh no, not like this. 5 leader Q. No, I don't think it does, but this is the implementation that I have. It's pretty simple, and it uses the R register, so it doesn't occupy your unnamed register for no reason. You can remove that if you actually do want that. Okay. Yeah. Then I have this fucking monstrosity. Let me show off the situation that I really often have. So imagine that here I have a line of code that I realize should be in an if statement. So what do? I type if condition, then, and now I'm left in this situation where essentially I want to move that a line of code into this if statement. My cat is meowing and I hope you can't hear that. So what's my default solution that doesn't require any remaps? I press DD, I press DD again, then P, and then indent inside bracket. Okay, that doesn't seem too bad, right? It isn't really, but this happens so often that I decided that I actually did need a remap for this. Because pressing the same key 4 times in a row is just not very good, honestly. So, to come back, why do I press DD 4 times instead of just doing like DJ and then P? Well, because now I have this useless blank line, which I don't need. How did I get it? I got it by typing brackets, and well, I need to somehow make them like multi-line. So I press enter and I have a blank line that I don't need. There's a case to be made that I should instead just like control U twice and then do my thing, but is that really more efficient than just pressing DD? I don't know, so that's why I do DD, essentially meaning to the black hole register, I don't need that line, and then DD to actually mean I do want to copy this, and then I just indent it. Yeah, so I noticed that I do this very, very often, enough that making a remap for this entire operation was actually worth it. It might not be always, so it's very important to check out what would you actually use. What happens so often that every time you do it, you're like, damn, I wish there was a better way for it. I don't recommend making remaps for every single little thing that you might need, because you'll just get lost in your remappings. So the way this works is, I think, leader DI. Yeah, and here we go. Just 3 characters typed in, and I got what I wanted. Okay, so what if I have a bit of a different situation? That only works for 1 line. What if I need multiple? Well, at that point, I do need to move myself. So what happens here? Once again, DD, move where I need to, P, and then this. So a lot of repeating actions, the only one that separates them is me moving to the code. So I have something for that as well. Leader DD just deletes 2 lines separately. So now I only have the line with the bracket. So now I move where I need to, leader PI, and it pastes that bracket and indents it. This can be argued that it's a bit over the top, but I still find this pretty useful. Okay, moving over to more things. Oh, wild. Actually, I covered them in the correct order. Interesting. Okay, so I'm gonna show you even more HK, because, well, that's the language I use most. Let's write a function, which is gonna be called funky, and here we go. That's a normal function, but there are also arrow functions. Let's actually code here, like this. Yeah, so what if I actually want to turn this into an arrow function? Well, what would happen here is, okay, let's actually think about this. So I move, first of all, to the bracket, meaning the most efficient way of doing this is this, then O, escape, great, we're here, S, great, we got the arrow, and then capital J, down, DD. A lot of actions for something this simple that could be in a macro, but the issue with macros is that it's essentially just clipboards, and I have to remember every clipboard and make sure they aren't overwritten when I actually do use registers for their intended purpose, essentially. Macros are more for temporary things that you only need sometimes. This behavior is something that I actually want, like, always. I always want to have access to it, and so I do. So leader BI, turns this into an arrow function, and leader BA turns it back into a normal function. How does it do that? I think goes to the start of the line, then percent or something of that nature, then finds equals, change 3 left, this, enter, escape, this, and we're done. But here's the actual implementation. Okay, it's actually, right, wait, where was I? Oh, it jumps. Oh, interesting. It now has a circle around it. I haven't noticed that. Let me hide it somehow. Okay, it jumps to the first opening bracket, so the opening bracket of the function, and then uses percent to jump to the ending one. That's for if your parameters are maybe functions. So let's say the default value of var is some another func that is funkier, and it returns something. If you just searched for the closing bracket, well, you're not where you actually need to be. And what if there is var2 that also has something like this, right? So you try to jump to the closing bracket and then the equal sign. Well, you aren't actually where you need to be here. But if you jump to the starting bracket and then percent and then this, well, this is pretty much guaranteed, which is really, really nice. I like it. So let's turn it back, and here you go. It actually works. Okay. And I also have two very simple ones, which I'm sure a lot of people will find useful. The comma, definitely. The semicolon, it depends on the language. So as you can see, AHK uses semicolons for comments and doesn't end lines with them. But I also use C#, and naturally, being able to press two buttons, leader and semicolon, to add a semicolon on the end of the line is just really nice. And I also use marks to go back to where I was. So see how my cursor doesn't move? Well, it actually does, but like I don't have to move back to where I was because I'm automatically being moved, which is I love that. And the same thing for commas. Like say you make an object like something is something, and maybe you have like multiple of them. Well, just double comma. Well, leader is comma for me, which is why it's double comma. So yeah, leader comma, and here you go. Which is, I love this. Vim is actually something that I've shown off in one of my videos. And Vim just selects everything which you would consider a code block, essentially. It's not exactly like perfect, but it's really useful for me because say I want to delete this entire object, what do? VA capital B and then capital V. That's a lot to press for something this simple. So just being able to say Vim for it is just incredible. So if you're interested in that, you can watch my video, which I will link in the description, and also a card on the top right. Okay. Is there anything else that I want to show off in this video? By the way, here's the multiply selection that I have. So leader Q once again. Okay, I'll show 4 more things. This is actually a remap that's that exists in Neovim by default, but not in Vim. Basically, this is a way to search for your selection. So let's do this. Oh, and also turn on, like, yeah, here we go. I selected something, pressed asterisk, or the pound symbol, I think they're called, and I just search for selection. Being able to search for the word is very, very nice for sure, but really often I want to search for something that I select, so I don't have to retype it myself. That just makes little sense to me. And as you can see, that is the part that I added in myself, because when I search for a word, I don't want to go to the next word. I just want to search for it first, and then I decide where I want to go. So after it starts searching for the word that I selected, or words, well, symbols essentially, it goes to the next one and then goes back, so I end up where I just was. So it doesn't jump for me, because I find it incredibly annoying. And another thing, which is pretty simplistic, DP and D capital B, D capital P. So let's make it a bit more visual. First line and then second line as well. So DP moves first line forward and second line backward. And D capital P does the opposite thing. So pretty simple. And not particularly required, because the default ways of doing this is DDP and then DDK capital P. So it's not like it's necessarily that difficult to press one extra button, but I do this so often that I might as well just do DP and D capital P. It's just simple like that. So if these were useful to you, press a like, type some comment, maybe you have a question or suggestion. Definitely subscribe so you don't miss my content, but most importantly, stay fresh, cheese bags. I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye!